Hi, I'm Quentin Young, and this is Second Story Garage. And we're here today with Steve Mullins and Doug Walter of Rim of the Well. And Rim of the Well plays something they call flamenco fusion. Steve, can you describe to me what flamenco fusion is?
For lack of a better term, most of what we do is based on flamenco music or based on the forms of flamenco, the different rhythmic structures. But it's a fusion of jazz and other things. And, of course, in Spanish flamenco, you don't ever hear marimba. Or in our large group, we have violin, which is fairly uncommon in flamenco also. So the basis of most of the compositions are flamenco forms, but we add a lot of jazz, and our approach to improvising over it, especially Doug, who's a monster of jazz performance, is a very jazz-like thing. So that's a fusion of sorts. So for lack of a better term, flamenco fusion.
Okay. And Doug, you play marimba.
Yep.
And watching you, you have a lot of intricate movements with your mallets, and I wanted to ask you about how you handle the mallets. And you use 2 mallets per hand. Now, how do you make that work? You're playing that on a marimba, which is essentially set up like a keyboard, correct?
Exactly.
And so describe what you do with the mallets.
Well, I use a grip called the Burton grip. I studied with Gary Burton, and you hold one stick kind of like a hammer, and then you put this one on top of it. And then you use all your fingers to make the different intervals. So this is like a second, and this is an octave in the lower range. Unlike a piano keyboard, the marimba bars are much wider at the bottom. So this is an octave at the bottom, and this is an octave at the top. So you have to get very in tune with your marimba bar sizes.
So every step over which your hand might be has a different, the interval will be a different size.
Well, sort of, that's part of the trick. There's only one manufacturer, one of my former students, who does that for every bar. But as you can imagine, making every bar, like he does, 1/32 of an inch smaller than the one next to it, is really hard. So actually, like half of an octave is one size, and the next half is another size, and they just progressively smaller by chunks.
Now, Rim of the Well, that name comes from a passage from Federico Garcia Lorca, if I'm not mistaken, and he was referring to the act of making art. Is that correct? Now, how does that...
Sort of the need for risk-taking in the creation of art. He talks a lot about duende. He wrote these essays on this concept called duende, which in Spain they're very fond of talking about. Duende sort of translates as an elf or something like that, but the way they use it in flamenco is this sort of aesthetic experience when it all sort of comes together and everything works properly, and the audience and the performers all sort of congeal, you might say. And he talks about it. For that to happen, there has to be this fighting on the rim of the well sort of thing, this possibility of falling in.
Yeah, and you play a song for us today called Rim of the Well, and that song does, to my ears, have a lot of dancing on the Rim of the Well, doesn't it?
We only fell in a couple times.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of joint movement up and down the fretboard and the marimba on that one, and it gets fast at periods, and you kind of have that feeling that you're on the rim about to fall in. But you guys kept it up there.
We survived. Yeah.
Steve has a great knack for writing music that is exciting to play and listen to. So excitement is a lot of what Rim of the Well is.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, it's great stuff, and this is music unlike we've had here in Second Story Garage. So if you haven't watched the videos yet, go do it right now. You'll love it. This is Second Story Garage.
Thanks, Quentin.